It's good to be in church. It's very good to be in church. Let's go to the house. A reading from the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 24. But all about that day and an hour no one knows, neither the angels of heaven nor the Son, but only the Father. For as the days of Noah were, so will be the coming of the Son of Man. For as in those days before the flood, they were eating and drinking, marrying and giving in marriage until the day Noah entered the ark. And they knew nothing until the flood came and swept them all away. So too will be the coming of the Son of Man. Then two will be in the field, one will be taken and one will be left. Two women will be grinding meal together, one will be taken and one will be left. Keep awake, therefore, for you do not know on what day your Lord is coming. But understand this, if the owner of the house had known in what part of the night the thief was coming, he would have stayed awake and would not have let his house be broken into. Therefore, you also must be ready, for the Son of Man is coming at an unexpected hour.
Sir. Thank you, Esteban, for that reading today. God bless the reading. When we start, can everybody see the screen? Did the baskets get in the way? Okay, good. Last week I played a little video for you about what is Advent, and they did such a great job of making sure you understood it was about getting ready for company coming, that I wanted to run that one more time this week to start the service. So here we go. What is Advent? All right. So if you're watching there, then you understand Advent is about the arrival. So it's like getting ready for company. Company's coming. That's what Advent is about. Jesus is coming. We anticipate the celebration of the coming of Jesus in the Christ child, the baby in the manger. That's coming in just weeks for us. But we are also told by the text today that in terms of the coming of our Lord, we never know when it can happen. But it happens. If you have received Jesus once already into your heart, get ready. Because during these 4 weeks, if you're open and awake, you will have the opportunity to receive Jesus not only again, but again and again. One thing is for sure, the Lord comes. And it is Advent, and it's time to get ready for company. That's not bad news for us. We'd love to have some company, right? We've been talking about it for a long time. But do you believe that it's possible? Or have we been talking about it so long that we've forgotten that maybe God has a role in this with us? Let's keep talking. You know what? This idea that someone's coming was never lost on me. I grew up in Tennessee, and that's called the Deep South. I know it's a little north of here, but it's not in terms of here. It's Deep South. And my grandmother knew there was a southern practice that you set an extra plate at the table at every meal because you never knew when someone might show up. Somebody in the family may bring someone home. I did that. When I was 18, I brought a man who was not the same color as my grandmother to that table. And my poor old grandmother, who could have refused to serve this man before I was born, was in one of those paradigm shifts. And the Lord came to her table that day, and she did something she had never done because she loved me so much. And she served a black man at her table, and my grandmother was never the same after that. Isn't that beautiful? She was a very old woman from a different time that we live in, and yet the Lord caught up with her in a really neat way. But you know, she still set that place. You always have a place at the table. You ever notice most of our families are 4 or 5 people strong, but a table and chairs are 6 place settings, right? And there's 8 if you buy the dishes right. So make room for someone at your table. Now, are you inviting someone this season? Have you spent some time around the table with someone yet? Try it. You know, at Jewish feast, there's always a place set. I'd always heard that they left a chair for Elijah at the Passover festival, but I found out that's not true. They leave a chair for Elijah at the circumcision event. I don't know why they want him to show up at that, but they're waiting, and maybe one day he'll show up. But you know what they do at the Passover meal? The Seder meal? By the way, Passover is not just a meal. The Jews made Passover a season, just like we do Christmas. It was a great big holiday, but it climaxed in the Seder meal. And at the Seder meal, there is a cup that is set at a place and filled with wine, and it's Elijah's cup, there for Elijah when he shows up. Now, the rabbi will tell you that sometimes Jews who like to be cute and funny will spill a little of that wine at the table by bumping the bottom of the table with their knee to say, look, Elijah has spilled his wine. But the truth is, they set it there in case someone unexpected drops by. And you know who they want that person to be? Elijah, even if it's you. Because what Elijah brings them is the good news, the message of hope. Messiah is coming to redeem his people. Wow. Set an extra cup at the table this year. As we talk about the message of hope, I wanted to demonstrate something for you today, something that I learned a long time ago. It's how to gather a crowd. I know how to do that. I've been good at it before, and I want to share this with you. But to do it, I'm going to have a visual. Now, I got this out because it's the first Sunday in Advent. The theme today is hope, and this is what we call a monument. We have a few of these here at Wylie Christian Church. These are items that have been used in worship in some time in our life together, and we can drag them out later in the future and put them up in front of ourselves. And for those who were a part of that, it brings certain things to mind, certain feelings to heart. This particular box was painted by the mother of one of our youth and the daughter of one of our couples here at the church, and it has some symbol of hope on all four sides. It was brought to us last year, and I got it out today on this first Sunday of Advent to reinforce the use of monuments. Monuments remind us of the work that God has done among us so that we may continue to be faithful and encouraged moving forward. Now, this great old big thing back here is going to become one of our monuments. But it's a big, bulky monument, and I'm not sure where it's going to end up yet. But I want to tell you about it, and I want to use it to show you how to gather a crowd. So I need a couple of volunteers who will come up and move this thing right down to the front so that I can get in front of the congregation with it. Would two folks come up here and grab a hold of that thing? It's in two pieces, by the way, and it's not heavy. Three will work. Come on, stay up, Joe. Three will work. It don't have to be two. It can be the other two, which is three. Yeah, well, that's all right. That's all right. Come on down. Come on down. Whacked you in the head, didn't it? It's all right. I wanted to do that anyway. Let's leave it like that. There you go. Now, stand there and hold it and just look kind of crazy for a little while. One time I had a gig on 6th Street in Austin, and if you've got a gig on 6th Street, you don't mess it up. Everybody needs to play 6th Street. If you dress like this, you got to play 6th Street, okay? That's the only home for you. And we had a 6th Street gig. Now, when we first started playing it, the pay was terrible. It was only tips, okay? And there's two bands a night in Austin, an early set and a late set. See how that works? Small and large, no medium. And so they would give us the late set because we came from out of town and we were willing to come even though they wouldn't guarantee us any money. You're working for tips. Did y'all hear me say that? Working for tips. Hey, it's kind of like being the pastor of the church. You're working for what you can get people to give you. Okay? Now listen. So a set is 3 hours, early and late. 2 3-hour sets, right? And 6th Street back in the day was sort of a tourist thing. It didn't cost anything to get in the club. So people would come by and they would look through the window or the door, see what's going on in here. And if they weren't captivated by what they saw, they went to the next one. Continued on till they found the scene they wanted to make. So here's what I knew. We get a 3-hour set. We start playing and we take a break. Guess what's going to happen to the crowd that we've been able to put together? They're going to leave. They're going to go somewhere else and look through another door. And they're not coming back to our room. So the idea is once you get started, don't quit. Keep going. You play 3 full hours without taking a break. Because if you take a break, you're going to lose your crowd. But if you don't take a break, guess what else happens? As you keep your crowd and more people start looking through the door, they say, wow, I don't know what's going on in there, but I got to go in there and see. And they come in and find out later, I'm not taking a break, so you don't get to leave later. You stay till the end. That's how we build a crowd. Now, we were taking care of this gig because they actually started giving us a cover at one point. They figured out we were going to keep people, and they were good with us. But one day, it came up time to do this gig. We were a week away, and my bass player quit. So this is a story of hope. We looked all over town to find a bass player. I even called a person who had played with me briefly, and it had ended violently, and I got like 3 cracked vertebrae to show for it. And I'm like, I don't care. We got to have a bass player. We can't not do the gig. So we practiced a week, and then that guy disappeared too. It was gig day. We're calling Austin. Everybody that we know. Does anyone know a bass player who will play with us? No. So we decided we can't cancel the gig. We'll go down there and we'll get there early and we'll run up and down 6th Street and we'll find somebody doing the early set somewhere that'll stay over and play with us. Now that's faith. No, not like it's a real big deal, but it's faith anyway. So we left town. We got to Austin and we found this bass player in the early set in the very same club we were playing. And not only did we find a bass player, he was one of the best musicians we ever played with, and he ended up being the bassist on our 2nd album, which is called Glasses. So we persevered through this on faith, and we found something really good. But we started off with some missing pieces. So I want to talk to you about the missing pieces. This was something Shannon made, and like most of the things that inspire me or Shannon, they happen at the last minute. They don't happen a week early. So she was up really late last Saturday night to make this for the banquet. And the idea was that you would all come together and you'd pick up a piece of this puzzle and it would say something on the back like study. And then you would take it up to Shannon and we would put it in place. And then as this came together, you would see that it made a picture. And it has to do with Wylie Christian Church, hands, helping hands and reaching out. Now, I got to admit, when we got there last week, and it's the way things are, there were some people missing. There were some empty chairs at the table. Folks had other places to be, and that's okay. But, the idea, again, was for all of us in this very important and serious time in the life of our church to demonstrate that we are coming together to do this. It's about participation, okay? And so we began. Oh, that's not it. Let me see if I can get this out. So we began piecing it together. Now, where did I take this one out? Now I'm not going to be able to do it, right? Does it go there? Thank you. Are you sure? Yeah, you are. You're right. You see, we really kind of envisioned that it wouldn't be all whole when it got put together. Because one of the things we wanted you to know was that when we have open spaces, God comes to fill in those spaces. Now, this is not just a message about church and Advent. This is about your life. When you have open spaces, God comes and fills that space. Are y'all with me? Some people say that's not true. Okay, so it still happens. Some people say it only happens to the folks who ask God to come and fill the spaces. Well, okay, but I don't believe they're right. It still happens to everybody. It's just a blessing when you're aware that God is doing that work. And you know how God fills the spaces? Say again? People. That is right. God uses people, their passions, their desires. Someone says, I care about your situation. Or I like the way your church worships. Or I believe in that ministry. And they get moved. And God uses people to come and fill those spaces. We talked a little bit about mission last week. And it was pointed out that we don't have any mission in the line item of our budget, finally. Finally, after 15 years. I didn't say, I said finally. Because the only line item mission in our budget is the fact that we share this building with the boys club and the girls club. And that makes the building important, and it makes our work here important. That's life. But we failed to mention a few things that we are in mission. We are in mission. The Transition Center and the Shoebox Ministry is a mission. And it doesn't come out of the line item of the budget. It comes out of your interest, your participation, and your giving and your activity. You're involved. It's not a line item. It's ministry. We gave out Thanksgiving baskets and assembled a banquet for all that would come. That's mission. And it didn't happen because it was a line item in the budget and the secretary went to Sam's and bought turkeys. It happened because you got involved and you gave time and money and effort because you cared. We talk about breakfast as an outreach ministry. And the question is, when will the food in the pantry run out? And will we have breakfast at 8:30 after that? Because it's not a line item in the budget, and the secretary will not be going to Sam's to buy sausage and orange juice. But we had breakfast for many years before it was a line item in the budget. It's mission, it's ministry, and we are involved in that. Even camp, for the last couple of years, has been happening because we all went to fundraisers together. And summer's coming. And since we don't have that line item anymore, we might need to start talking about that pretty early. You know what we've been talking about is new ways, I heard that, new ways of being church. And what they're doing in our denomination and in the Methodist church is a return to mission. If you had been there for 7 weeks of study on evangelism, what you would have found out was that no longer does the world care that we have cool programs and that we are faithful enough believers and bold enough to tell you our story at the water cooler and invite you to our church. Really, what evangelism now is, how do you live out the difference that Jesus makes in your life? Then it's sort of up to God whether that grows your church or not. We're involved in a new conversation about what it means to be evangel, to reach outside the walls of our church, to be church to the community. We're involved in new ways of being stewards. There are conversations that ask hard questions about what it means to own property and what it means to have liability. And we're talking more and more about the expense of being church. And I'm hearing that conversation give way to a word much better: investment. You see, this is not a new way. It's a way that we read about almost 20 years ago, and then we got a line item budget anyway. And we bought a building anyway, and we ended up being church just like our parents, and that's great. We have been strong, and God has blessed us. And at the same time, there are these exciting conversations now about what it means to invest in your church rather than endure the expenses. Because where you invest, that's where your heart and your passion will end up. Investment equals hope. Expense equals hopelessness. Are y'all with me? Because you know what matters more than anything is our participation in this. It's like you might have got here because you like the way we worship, or the praise band, or maybe the challenging theology. But it's time to join more than the praise band or the conversation. It's time to join more than the church. It's time to join God in this movement forward. Let God decide what might come of the church or the conversation. And here's another point I want to make today. In the way of hope, if we had the greatest praise band ever, if we had the only theology that anyone needed, if we ever thought that we had it all together, that we were whole and we had the answer, then I could understand why we're not growing. We may have forgotten. Would you tear that off? Will you reach and get that bowl out of there for me? Down inside that box. That's too short. I mean, we may have forgotten to leave room for God. We may have forgotten to leave room for Jesus. Tear about a fourth of that off and put it in that bowl, will you? So as this becomes a monument for our church, as we find a place to display it, and as people come here to visit and to join God in mission alongside you, and they ask you about this monument, and they ask you why there's a piece of the puzzle missing, you can tell them that we're leaving room for God, that we don't have everything figured out, and that we are challenged at times. And that as we do that here, perhaps we make room for God in our own lives. By the way, I'm going to tell you how to draw a crowd. You can just take that. I'll burn the rest of it later. I'm going to tell you, if you were listening to my story, how to put a crowd together. A crowd gathers where there's already a crowd. Did y'all know that? That's why your attendance, that's the word on the back of this piece of the puzzle. It's so important. It's an encouragement to people who are struggling for hope when they come to this place and see people waiting. And when you go to them, that's it. Get ready. Jesus is coming. Bow with me in prayer. Y'all can put that puzzle back against the wall if you want.